Welcome back, everyone. We are moving into the discussion on a panel mode, and I take this opportunity to introduce the speakers. The first speaker in this panel is Mr. Amir Delju, the Senior Scientific Officer, and Mr. George Louis Vacquez Hage, both of them from WMO. They're experts in climate information for decision making. Second panelist is Dr. Yang Song, the Chief Research Fellow, Korean Environmental Institute. And the third panelist is Ms. Christina Solano, UNCDF. She's a CRA expert. Each speaker will have about 3 minutes to answer a question. My first follow-up question is to Dr. Song from Korean Environmental Institute. The question is, what are the technical limits in downscaling climate models, the local level for climate risk assessments? We know that science is advancing, certainly you have demonstrated that, but there are certain limitations. Certainly this is something which is not understood across the globe. I don't see, everybody has this kind of an access and knowledge of, this 1 kilometer of 1 kilometer resolution. That is certainly a stumbling block over the years. More the finer the resolution, finer the details we get, and the planning will be far more robust when you get that kind of information. It's a very commonsensical stuff, but still there are certain limitations about it. If you could demystify this a bit to make it as how a common man could relate to this, it will be very useful. Thank you so much.
Please. I'd like to tell you about the follow-up question. So question is, what are the technical limits on downscaling climate models to the local level climate risk assessment? As I spoke in the presentation, we have downscaled the climate scenario 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer. So I'd like to tell you how, kind of experience, while we are downscaling those climate scenario. Actually, in the course of the downscaling for Korean Peninsula, firstly, we have used the Codex East Asian region results, which is the 25 kilometer by 20 kilometer resolution. And with this Codex results, we have downscaled again to 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer by using special tool called Prism. Prism is a kind of a tool to making the downscale from the 25 by 25 to the 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer. Up to here was not so difficult. Well, not easy, but there's no difficulties. But the problem is when we are having the verification. So in order to make it effective, then we should have the kind of verification results. So in order to verify the results, we should have the firstly we should have the observed data. The problem is some point or some area there's no data available. So we have some difficulties of this missing data. So for this, we have actually made a kind of artificial data by using there's some topograph for the data or something like that. So by using the other materials and our other data, we could develop the kind of artificial observing data. So with mixing that, we could finish the verification. And after finish the verification, and we actually check up all the results again and again, and finally our 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer the downscale, the results are very reliable. So this is our experience. But at here we just realize that the observation data is very important for the downscaling. So in these days in Korea, we are actually operating about 500 automatic weather station. This 500 the AWS, which is the automatic weather station, is I think a lot compared to the Korean territory. So if we just make the distance between station to station is about 10 kilometers. So we are managing 500 the automatic weather station. The distance between each station is about 10 kilometers. So nowadays, through our experience, we have just add more stations. So finally, we are managing those number of the stations. So through this the experience, we can it suggests, other area, of course, other areas already have their, enough number of the AWS, but if there is no, if there is a place where it doesn't have the enough number of AWS, then we just, suggest to, make the more station. This is the kind of basic way to, making the downscaling for the climate, the scenario. This is the thing that we are experienced so far. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Song.
Yeah, Nambi, can I also jump in? This is
Please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Actually, thanks, Dr. Young. The explanation was very good and rich. And from WMO experience here, what we observe is that when there is no kind of facility to provide downscaled information for a least developed country or developing countries, first of all, we rely on historical data analysis because it provides a reliable benchmark or baseline to see how rapidly the climate has been changing in the past. And we can then extrapolate what will it behave into the future. That's one solution. The second is the uncertainty in climate models. Either they are global or regional, particularly for downscaled models, they are region specific. There are around 12 to 15 regionally developed downscaled models. So one model cannot be used for all the world or be taken to other countries. That's one point. The second is that if we choose shorter lead time, like 20 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, is much better than going much longer to 50 years. It's totally increasing significantly the uncertainty. And this is another kind of solution, how to deal with uncertainty in downscaled models. And the third that Christina also mentioned is to go really to local knowledge and indigenous knowledge, to learn from local people. They are not quantitative kind of values and information, but qualitative that can complement climate models and all those physical data to guide us into better solutions. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'd like to respond about the 30 seconds only. So I 100% agree with you. And also the point you talk about the uncertainty is very important. So we cannot rely on the one single result. This is why we're going for the kind of ensemble data. So this is why when we are making the multi-project, we have developed another climate scenario with the same resolution. So we are actually operating the impact assessment two ways, but three ways. Make the data together and make the ensemble. This is very important to you point out. Thanks so much for your comments.
Thank you both. Very interesting discussions. In the interest of time, we'll move forward. This question is for our WMO colleagues. How can local governments and their communities be supported or equipped to ensure adequate consideration of medium and long-term climate risks in their planning? This is a very important question because, I'm from India. Always we've been it's kind of, we are finding it difficult to, though we have advanced in advisories, in disseminating the advisories, agriculture advisories particularly. The seasonal forecasting is something which is in a tropical environment. It is always a problem to kind of have the right kind of a forecast and prediction. That's my understanding of it. So it kind of answers to those things, particularly looking at the medium and long-term climate risks in the planning. That's a very critical component because a lot of the trade-offs between the short-term interventions and the long-term interventions depends on this particular information what we get. So it's a very interesting question. I hope we both could handle this. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. We are two from WMO. So first, Jorge, can I jump in?
Please. I'm sorry. Okay. I should have mentioned.
Yeah. Actually, one of the most important technical activities that WMO runs through national meteorological and hydrological services in all countries is to ensure that they have a good database of weather and climate information. They have good competency of the experts and staff members to analyze the data and interpret that for different sectors. And one of the most important sectors is agriculture, as you mentioned. Then we also organize regional climate outlook forums every 6 months, bring stakeholders, not just our own community from Met Services. We bring all stakeholders, including agriculture community and farmers, who are the most active community among others. We provide them with seasonal to inter-annual prediction. And then with that information, they can plan better for their fertilizing activities, cultivation of species different. They adopt their own practices. So these are what at shorter term Met Services with the help of WMO can provide. But as I mentioned, it's not a local activity. It's a nationwide activity. If we have a good national database, it serves all locals, all provinces, and all places. But again, it should be complemented with local knowledge that farmers and other practitioners from local level bring to that forum that we call Climate Outlook Forum. Jorge can provide more specific data-related information about this.
Thank you, Amir. Yes, I completely agree on what you have mentioned. And in my view, how local governments and their communities can be supported or equipped to ensure that they get adequate consideration for the climate risk management has mainly to do with capacity building at the local level in the context of the global framework for climate services, which was mentioned by Christina. Well, the global framework for climate services is based on pillars, and one of the pillars is the observations and monitoring of the climate. The other one has to do with research, prediction, and modeling. But also, it is very important to consider the climate information systems and the user interface platform. The point here is that it is imperative to empower sectoral users and users in general, all society, in terms of climate knowledge. For example, if a farmer or a water manager, if they get knowledge on the climate that happens at their local place, they know which one is the rainiest month, but also they know when they expect less rainfall. We are now, with climate change, facing these two timelines that are encountering at some point, because we know that the climate is changing, but we face uncertainty about when and where exactly the climate is changing. Then, by knowing the features of the present climate, then all members of society get also involved in the need of knowing not only the present climate, but what are the projections, what are the scenarios. And it is very important to consider that scenarios are not predictions. Scenarios are not forecasts, are just possible futures. They might happen or they might not. And we face a level of uncertainty for that. And managing that uncertainty makes us to put in place a set of alternatives for adaptation. Then we need to have solutions. And the best solution is to be adapted to the present climate. If we know our present climate and we can adapt to the present climate, then we have good probabilities to adapt to future climates. Therefore, I will say that governments can be supported and equipped if they engage in the mission of knowing well present climate. So they could ask to funding agencies at the national or international level, including GCF, for support to implement strategies that allow societies to then deal with climate variability and change.
Thank you, Mr. Ogari and Amir. And you made it very crystal clear that what has to be done and where the problem lies. And that's interesting. And thank you so much. Now, moving on to the third question to Christina. Based on your experience with UNCDF's local program, what experiences and good practices on such issues exist out there? How local program is supporting testing and or scaling up such initiatives? We, WRI, had the privilege of associating with UNCDF. We did the framework, the CAP framework, to kind of, understand the dynamics at the local level, to kind of, make use of the local funding in a very rational way. So what she's talked is very relevant, and I could easily relate to where she's been practicing this, and she's been involved in this work for a long time. Please.
Thank you. Yeah, first of all, I think that it's very important, as my colleagues also mentioned, to build this capacity at local levels to understand the climate future projections, what they mean, and the benefits they provide. And for us, this is easy to do when we put some examples, clear and specific examples of maladaptation, for example, or building business as usual. Okay, for example, in Niger, we were explaining why to have that in consideration, why climate future projections are important. Because if we see, now we are, for example, investing in water belts, but it seems that in the future, the water table is going to drop down. So if we consider this future, likely future projections, we can maybe to rethink these expensive investments in drill deeper to get water belts, and probably to see the possibility to gather the superficial water with different options. We have a lot of options to intercept this water, superficial water, because the future problem seems to be this less rainy season, but more intense. So we need to focus on what to do with this, the available water in the surface. Okay, also preventing disaster risk related to flooding. So when they see these specific explanations, it's better to understand why to consider that and how to do the shift to amplify the vision. So consider, of course, historic recourse, current disasters, but also likely future impacts. Okay. First of all, the second more successful experience is the showcase. Of course, we think that it's very easy to change, but at local levels they have a long-term traditional agricultural practices, for example, that it's very difficult to change. So the most successful experience is to do these changing practices in a small hectare. So it becomes a very good showcase, proving the increase of yields or whatever result you are expecting or you are trying to get. Okay, this is the second, the showcase. And the third one is the twinning exchange experience, because sometimes communities are more committed, more comfortable with their peers. So we are trying to promote this exchange between community to community. So they understand better, they know how to use languages or, the cultural context to convince or maybe to show the success experiences to the peers. Okay, the fourth one is, for me, is the most important. Probably we are used to, at national level, to think and rethink on the better adaptation measures, So for example, this adapted seeds or whatever other adaptation measures. But sometimes we forget that these adaptation measures are implemented by someone, by local governments. And the success of the adaptation measures depends also in how the implementers are implementing these activities. You know, these successful adaptations solutions can sometimes be not that successful when the implementer is not aware, is not convinced, is not aware of all the added value of doing so. So it's very important to be clear that all the adaptation process must consider this capacity building first of all, and better understanding of the local levels of why to do that, why it's better, and to be guided to be the leaders of their own processes. And that's not easy, but it's very a successful experience. And local is trying to work in that sense, to have a good experience to scale up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christina. Very important point is, definitely you also provided some practical guidance of how to take it further at the local level. That's an important stepwise process, which should be methodically one should go dealing with this subject. So I'll stop here. It is a wonderful experience being with you, and I learned a few things today. It is a very stimulating kind of a discussion. I hope we could continue this in different forums, and I know you'll continue. I'll look forward to your papers and your own publications on these issues, and we'll be in touch. Thank you so much.